Hello, everybody. I hope you can see and hear us all okay. We've had a bit of a day of technical issues currently, but we are hoping that this goes well. Welcome back to another Moon Colony live stream, and happy Friday. It's so nearly the weekend. Um,
It is.
yeah, me and Alex were saying just before the stream started that like as soon as we're done, we're going outside and enjoying the nice weather while we've still got it.
Yeah. It's,
Um,
it's a sticky stream today.
Yeah, yeah, it is a sticky stream today. Yeah. um, oh, you can see and hear us? Amazing. Perfect.
That's great.
So we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. When Alex mentioned it to me, I was very intrigued. So I feel like you would be the better person to kind of introduce what we're doing because you know more about it than I do. So
Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of split into several parts really, but the first part of it is just introducing you guys to a way that I sort of do warm-up sketches and sketch characters and environments for splash art and other stuff. But the sort of environment that I use to do this in is kind of specific to helping understand how to draw in perspective properly and be kind of dynamic with your compositions and stuff. So first of all, I was just going to do a little bit of sketching, show you how I've like set this thing up and like some of the cool stuff that you can do with this. And then I have kind of, yeah, we can go into talk about dynamic compositions, how to kind of make composition dynamic, and then I also have like a little bit of a lesson where I show the same kind of painting, the same idea, but one composition is like not so dynamic and the other one is very dynamic, and talk about like how it's being done differently on both. So yeah, there you go.
amazing.
That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah. Well, as always, I feel like I need to specify that if you have any questions, fire away. I mean, this is a whole new program as well, so I'm sure it'll be interesting to learn about this. What's it called? Pano Painter. So,
Yeah,
whoa.
it's yeah, sickening.
Yeah.
And you can actually use this in VR as well if you want to.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you really want to get the I'm on a boat out at sea experience in your own living room.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
so
oh, just
yeah,
just quickly before we start, Ignacio has a great question. Is this free, or do you have to pay for this?
so there's several parts to this answer.
Mm,
There is a web version that you can use for free,
mhm.
um, and so that's cool. You just can't save out from it, but I mean, just for doing study sketches, it's totally fine. That's
Yeah,
basically all you really use it for.
yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's like 15 quid for the actual program,
Okay, cool.
and it's available on like PC, Mac, iPad, etc.
That's
But you can also do this in Photoshop. It's just
yeah.
Photoshop has stopped supporting like 3D within the
Mm,
program, so you have to roll your Photoshop version back to like 2022,
hmm
um, where you can use 3D features, and you can set up this exact same thing. But the reason that I don't use it in Photoshop is because I think this is kind of way better and smoother
hmm
overall to do it in. But
Yeah,
like I said, there's a free web version of this, but it's not exact. It's not meant to be like an advert for the program
yeah,
so
of
much
course.
as
Yeah.
it's just something that I like using because I think learning to draw things in perspective, especially digitally, is quite difficult.
Mm,
And when you have a program like this or any other program like Clip Studio, or I'm sure there's like others out here that have these kind of tools in that can help you draw in perspective
mm,
and let you draw within an environment that lets you do this. I think it helps you kind of learn by seeing a bit more than just trying to figure out whether your sketches are in perspective or not. So this is why I'm kind of quite fond of this
mhm.
thing. So Yeah, it's very simple. It functions very similarly to Photoshop. You can bring Photoshop brushes into it. As you can see right now, I'm just like right clicking and panning around. I appear to be within the center of the 3D space. And it's basically like being at the center of a sphere, and I'm looking all the way around. And what's... Sorry, someone's at my front door.
Oh no, you're all right. It's fine. We'll be right back. Oh, back already. That was quick. You say it was some just a random person.
Yeah, just like go away.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some cool tools in here. For one, you have your perspective grid. Brilliant.
Nice.
That you can bring in. You have guides that you can just draw in, so that you can set up your perspective. Which is really cool.
Yeah,
and you basically just kind of look in the direction that vanishing point's in, and it knows what you're trying to do. So this is great. Obviously, you can look down. There's my vanishing point, vanishing point, vanishing point, vanishing point, vanishing point. And yeah, you can set this up in other programs, obviously, but it's quite easy in here. And what's really cool is that you can change the focal length of the camera that you are using. So if you want to do something that is like, quite zoomed in and feels a bit more like a telephoto viewpoint, you can do this. If you want something to be like super extreme and like distorted at the edges, like you're using something more akin to a fisheye, you can also do that. And that's all within the same thing. And yeah, you can use this in VR, but it'll make you sick.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love the thought of using this in VR, but I don't think I'll actually want to.
Yeah, I tried using it in my drone goggles, and I was just like, after like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you can see, so if I was just drawing like poses, doing like morning warm-ups or whatever in here, because I have this kind of set up, I automatically drawing into an environment that the perspective's already set up, and it kind of enables me to draw like more correctly off the bat, even if I'm being really loose with my sketches, because I have an idea of where my vanishing points are, like in what way that I'm looking at something, where that person is in space, for example, so on and so forth. And it just, to me, it really helps, because perspective has never been something that I'm super amazing at.
Yeah.
And it is something that when I'm doing my own work, I have to really pay attention to, and often correcting a lot of stuff as I go forward. So I just find it a really helpful study environment, let's say, to do things in, because I can muck around with it in different ways. And again, like what's quite nice as well in here is like I can make this, I don't know, appear however I want. Like I can zoom in and this is my composition, and I can work around this. Like, okay, just gonna have long hair and birds and stuff flying around. But later on, if I'm like, oh, actually, maybe I want to do something like this, and there's a pathway, and she's standing at the edge. She's pointing in, being like, "You need to go this way," kind of thing. It's just quite a fun environment to muck around in, and it's really cool for figuring out a composition as well, because I don't know how other people find this, but I find that my first version of a composition is always much less dynamic in the beginning than the one it ends up being. And partly that comes down to, in the beginning, just trying to get that idea out, but also because thinking about how to use the space within perspective is really quite difficult. And if you have to do that on top of trying to come up with something imaginative, you end up either with a complete mess that you don't understand, or you end up with something like really stiff that you have to keep iterating on over and over and over. And I find that figuring it out in this way and having a bit of a option to change the focal length and exactly how I'm seeing the composition is really helpful. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about this, kind of the basics of this program. And yeah, you were going to say something?
Well, I was, yeah, but I was just going to say thank you to Laura, who used their Twitch Prime subscription to subscribe to us today.
Word.
Thank you so much, Laura. It's much appreciated.
Well, nice one, Laura.
Nice one, Laura. Keep it up.
Keep it up.
But yeah, there are also people that are just generally pretty impressed with this program, so it's interesting. Jahina said the free web version is also pretty cool. So
yeah, it's exactly the same. You just can't save.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is really fun. Back a few years ago, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago now, it was very popular to do these like 360 images because it was kind of a new thing. And, I think this came out, off the back of that being a pretty interesting thing. And it's kind of died off a little bit now. It's not like everyone's like, oh, we got to have a 360 image for a thing. But yeah, I find this kind of way more intuitive to draw in than just drawing on a blank canvas in Photoshop, or drawing on a canvas that I've set up a couple of vanishing points on. Just this ability to like turn things around and think about what's happening in the space. I feel like it has helped my understanding of things come on as well, because sort of in an environment where it seems logical and set up, it's kind of removed one thing from my thinking. Like
that's the thing, like a lot of the time when I look at perspective grids, sometimes it can just feel like this is a lot of like, there's a lot of lines, there's a lot of visual information here that I can't really tell what's going on. But seeing it in like a 3D space really helps clarify what they're trying to show.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really cool as well, because I think one of the hardest things about drawing stuff in kind of more dynamic perspective as well is knowing how and when to like distort certain things. And like if I put this guy like right in the corner here, even though I would still have to redraw over this to kind of get certain elements to really work, it gives me a much clearer base to go from, even on a real basic scribble like this. And the cool thing is you can draw anything in the middle that you would like. Let's just draw something real quick. Draw something in the middle, it's not going to have that distortion, so you can kind of figure out like, okay, this is my figure. He's doing this cool jump towards us. Yeah, and then I can move it over into the edge and get this like distortion coming through, and then I'll redraw over that again and find how that's going to work within this, and I might decide actually I need to zoom out or get him a bit over, so on and so forth, and it just works really well for that stuff.
I think being able to change the focal length and the field of vision is really nice. Just being able to do that on the fly is amazing.
Yeah, Yeah, no, it is really cool, and it kind of has helped me figure out some compositions where the first drawing I'm like, oh, it's a bit off, but then if I turn it slightly and then I think about, okay, maybe I tilt the horizon here and I do this,
Hmm.
uh, then yeah, it helps me get to the idea quicker, and I think in dynamic composition that's really helpful.
Yeah.
So there's something pretty cool about this that I I figured out. Um, basically, uh, in in Blender, you can render out an equirectangular um, scene,
Hmm.
and that is basically what this space is. So if you render out a scene like that, you can drop it into this. You can just load it into this as a JPEG.
Yeah.
Um, and for example, let me clear these guides. Clear guides, and I'll just get rid of the grid. Someone uploaded this like free model
Oh,
of
awesome.
like a block model of their bedroom,
Hmm.
and the boxes are going crazy. But as you can see, this is kind of one step even better than just having the grid
Mm.
on here. So you can make like a gray box model of your scene, like let's say it's New York City, and uh, all the Avengers are fighting some dude in there. You could just make some gray box model um, of that scene. It can literally just be a few rectangles. It doesn't need to be anything spectacular.
Yeah.
Place a camera in it in Blender, render out equi-rectangular render like
Hmm.
this, and then you can start to, draw your composition within that scene. And I think that you'll see the benefits of doing that are that you can you can try out like stuff that potentially you might have been held back from even drawing yourself
Hmm.
because of the limitations of your own understanding or ability to draw stuff in that crazy perspective. But like now that you have a scene, you can just start to draw stuff within it. You can come up with much better compositions and ideas overall
Yeah.
uh, in there. So yeah, something I've been doing a lot is using this to basically do my morning warm-ups, like set up, grab a different scene or make one myself and import that in,
Hmm.
and just go in and try and test my understanding of certain things, um, and like use the environment and the cues within that itself to help me see, okay, which view would I actually see this from? And I can use my own knowledge of I know what it's like to stand next to a bed and like what I see when I'm doing that to help me figure out what's going on in this scene, for example. Um,
Yeah, you can play around with like more. You said that you can play around with more interesting like perspectives that you might not have even attempted before or wanted to attempt before.
yeah, exactly. And then you like, hey, I think it's really good for like figuring out like narrative in that way as well because
Mm.
it kind of feels like you're in VR and there's just like
Yeah.
or like in real life I guess like you're chatting to this guy and you're not into it you can
Just walk away.
you just walk away in the drawing as well. Um, uh,
Yeah. Um, Christina, I don't know if you played the game, but Christina says this environment looks like the Stanley Parable. It's just,
oh yeah, I know the one. Is that the game where it kind of narrates at you and like
yeah, yeah,
yeah yeah uh, yeah it's got a bit of a stuck in limbo kind of
mm,
feel about it.
yeah. It's all those.
Mm.
Oh man, I can't remember what they're called now. The shadows, like in the corners, and what? For some reason, all I can think of is ambient occlusion. But it might. Actually, I think it is ambient occlusion.
Yeah,
I don't
all
know.
of this. Yeah,
Yeah.
ambient occlusion. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all of that. It's all here. It's all spooky. So this is me shrimping at the
Nice.
computer with my little shrimp head. Shrimp body.
For a second, I thought you were going to be like with my mohawk. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, nice.
yeah, cool. That's my shrimp body. Yeah, I think it's really cool, and I don't know. I've had some. I want to make my desk like a very basic model of my
Mm.
desk in 3D, so I can draw myself at my desk.
Oh, you can draw
Like if I,
yourself drawing yourself at your desk.
yeah,
Yeah.
like and use that to then do a still life study of my entire desk, but from my POV.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, like let me rub this guy's feet out. It's like if I stood up and I was looking at my feet, I might see something like this, my t-shirt coming up here,
Yeah.
and then and then like this will be me in a few hours, like holding the beer.
Holding a pint. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guinness in one hand, pork scratchings in the other.
Yeah, or just yeah, or did I just crash the program?
Oh, it couldn't handle it. It couldn't handle the pint.
Oh, hang on. Couldn't handle the pint.
Oh man. If I was gonna say anything had crashed, it was gonna be that. Oh, there we go. Oh, not.
No. All right, give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. Do you want me to hide your screen for a bit so you don't reveal any
Yeah,
industry
that'd be good.
secrets? Yeah, all right. No
Thanks.
worries. 1 second. There we go. We are back.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. But yeah, I'll show you a couple of other interesting things that you can do with this, and then we'll sort of get into a bit more of the like the lesson that I had
Yeah. Just
planned within this.
just quickly, Perpetual Pairs has a question. They just said, so would you use this software more for experimentation instead of a full polished piece? I mean, you kind of touched on this as we've been through, but
yeah, I really would use this for the very beginning stages to sort of sketch everything out, how I want it, how I want it, and basically like do my thumbnailing in this. I don't really like painting in this. I'm much. Photoshop is better for that, in my opinion. But you can export all these layers into Photoshop even to paint on it. But yeah, for the most part, just using this for thumbnailing and conceiving of ideas, and for doing studies in the mornings, drawing figures in those kind of different environments that you saw. So one thing you can do, this is like obviously a different thing that I very briefly rendered out. But you could see how, you could turn this in a composition like buildings, for example, and you could have, some kind of blob monster coming over with tentacles and everything. And you can figure out your composition in here, much better than I think is possible in Photoshop. And yeah, it's just good having all of these kind of landmarks you like for understanding where things go. So those are like what you can do with the renders from something like Blender. But what you can also do, if you just search for like HDRIs, or like 360 images, you can bring in like 360 photos essentially.
Nice.
And again, in the same way that you would use those in Blender, to make a scene, you can use something that already exists to kind of figure out, okay, like what do figures look like in here, and get a feel for understanding perspective this way, like how big a figure is in certain places, or if indeed you were doing an interior, piece. Let's say you're doing storyboarding, or you're figuring out frames for a comic, and you have an area set around they're set around a table chatting. Like you can bring those scenes in and draw over them, and have everything set up in a way that really makes sense for that. I think it's just a great tool for that, and of course you can mess with that as well, so the focal length and such. So there you go. So that's just kind of like some cool stuff that I found out about this tool, and how I'm using it at the moment. But we can talk a little bit more about doing dynamic composition, and what makes the composition dynamic and what makes one not so dynamic within here. So of course, obviously, if there's any questions as we do this, then
I will interrupt.
Brilliant. Brill. Okay. So yeah, I think basically to understand like what makes a composition dynamic, we sort of need to know about the components of that composition, or like what actually are we talking about when we talk about a composition. And it's basically everything we have at our disposal to make a picture. So that goes from how everything is arranged within the space. It then goes into the colors that we use, where we choose to sort of saturate and desaturate those colors, how we use shape and like line within the image to direct the viewer's attention, and also how we use lighting to convey narrative, and all of those things. So all of that stuff together is the composition as a whole, and we can then talk about like the visual elements of that as being like one part of the composition. So, specifically the shapes and where my eye's being led and stuff like that. But we could also talk about the the more sort of abstract stuff, how the use of color and all that kind of thing. So when we're talking about a composition, we're kind of talking about all of it. And when it's a dynamic composition, it's like, how do we arrange those things differently to be dynamic as opposed to kind of more static? And yeah, I have a kind of thing that I can talk about while I do this as kind of a demonstration, and then I have an actual painting that we can have a look at as well. So let's say in here I'm figuring out a composition that it's like a sort of one character in the middle and some superhero type characters trying to stop this character from doing what he's doing. So I'll draw a little bit of this out as a composition, and then we can talk about this some more. So I'm going to have this dude in the middle. His name rhymes with Shmanos. The type of character that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So Shmanos is here, and he's got this, orb above him. He's about to crush it with his hands or whatever. Whatever is the flavor of the month in the superhero world at this point. And we want to show like all of the heroes like rushing in to try and stop this.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be quite cool to like have, let's say, a hero in the foreground, like running in to stop this.
Thank you, by the way, Marco, for using your Twitch Prime subscription. 3 months. Amazing. Thank you so much. They said just came in for this wonderful liminal space.
Yeah, who doesn't love a distinctly blank and crazy liminal space?
Yeah.
One of the things I did think about rendering out actually is show you guys was the back rooms. To be like, you can draw all of your figures here.
you can put all of your favorite sleep paralysis demons in the back rooms.
Yes, exactly. You can draw them coming in from all sorts of different angles.
Man, you should have gone with it. Missed opportunity.
I know. I ran out of time. Okay. So I got this kind of witchy character flying in this way. It's like, no. But you can see what I'm doing here is I'm trying to be, to some degree, dynamic with the composition, right? We've got this guy leaping in, got this lady witching in here. Everything's going towards this thing in the center. Maybe we can have Arachnid Man.
Oh, hell yeah. I love Arachnid Man. He's my favorite.
Arachnid Man's really good.
Yeah, he is, yeah. We've currently got the Dash.
Yeah, we got Dash.
We got Dash. We got Red Witch.
Yes,
Red Sorceress.
Curtains in the wind.
Curtains in the wind.
In the wind, lady.
Yeah.
And
Shmanos.
Shmanos, and
Alright.
Arachnid Man.
Earth's mightiest heroes.
Well, actually, this could be Arachnid Men, and there's a few of
There's a
them.
few of them. There's like a little troop. There's a little circus troop of arachnid men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ignacio said the Revengers.
The Revengers. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah,
This has got legs, honestly,
yeah. Someone snap
and not
this
just
up.
because he's Arachnid. Yeah. And yeah, instead of the snap, he's about to do the splat, and he's about to pop this water balloon.
Perfectly damp, as all things should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Lieutenant Oceana.
Okay, so we got these guys in here,
Mhm.
and then what's the other guy?
I don't know. So far, there's Cyan Warlock, Lieutenant Oceania, and
And we can have Steel Man. No,
Steel.
Copper Man.
Yeah, Copperman.
He's gonna be late. He's gonna be coming in way from the back.
He's a bit squishy, and his weakness is electricity, but he's doing his best, and that's what counts.
Yeah, exactly. and his armor's like really quite soft.
Yeah.
He's kind of flying in.
Do not drop him from a high height.
Yeah. And yeah, people are constantly trying to break into his house to steal copper pipe.
Copper dude.
Yeah. Copper merchant. Oh yeah, he's good.
Man.
He can actually just be Copper Bob as well.
he's just Bob. He's
Yeah,
your
it's
local.
Bob.
He's your local scrap dealer.
Yeah. This Copper's Bob. Okay. So we've got the Revengers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it has all the elements of potentially being like a very dynamic composition in here. But one thing that I think is very important about dynamic compositions is like how we use the space effectively and how we like draw the viewer into the space. Because I think aside from some other stuff, dynamic compositions kind of place the viewer within the frame to a certain extent, and they place the viewer in a place within the scene itself. So you're kind of experiencing it in the same way that the characters themselves are experiencing the composition. And so, you know, there are dynamic things happening in this composition, but they're not happening dynamically. And I can talk a little bit about the space here and exactly why it comes across as being like a little bit strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we'll color code this. So we have things happening on different planes, right? We have like the foreground plane. Do this in green. Foreground. We have our kind of midground plane. Doing that with a straight line.
Yeah. Yeah, when getting a brush is just too much effort.
Yeah, it's just we're live. We're here, and then we have like the background plane, and we'll just to be true to form, we'll keep the straight line tool to write with, and you'd think like, oh great, like we've got several different planes set up for this image. That's really cool. That's very dynamic. So But what's happening here is everything is sort of confined to the space that it sits in. So our foreground characters here uh, basically only exist as like cutouts within this plane of here. They're like slightly crossing this plane if we were to sort of think about it, like this, um, that they're going through it. But we as the viewer aren't experiencing any of this. And so separately, the Shmanos is sat as like a cardboard cutout in his midground plane, and Copper Bob and the Arachnid Men are stuck in their background plane, and then obviously you'd have the sky or whatever, very far background. So it's kind of almost like a cardboard like diorama that we have set up here that is giving us a very like static and sort of stepped appearance to everything. And I think to make a really dynamic composition, we want to have elements that will cross these boundaries. So cross from foreground to midground, or cross from foreground to background even, or cross from background into the midground, etc. And make these bridges to come across in here. Another thing about this is that, like, currently the way that everything's arranged, even though we are using the space, we sort of have everything coming in at the same kind of angle into the frame. Like, everything's coming in at 45 degrees to the 90.
Yeah.
And even though this creates diagonals in the composition, which tend to lead the eye and give us a kind of a throughput into something, when we set it up in such a way that everything is coming in at the same angle, we are kind of corrupting any sort of dynamism we could have with those lines and the way that something enters the frame like this. So it makes something that is actually set up to be dynamic kind of very undynamic. And this also leaves us with this feeling that there is a lot of space in here that has not been used to help tell the story, like namely this kind of vast space in the foreground here that is not being used up, and it serves to only separate us from the frame. It's kind of like we're watching this at the cinema. Yeah, and we are removed from the action too much, and so again, it feels less dynamic. This stuff is happening over there and not around us in a dynamic way. So I'm going to like draw this out again, kind of using the space a bit more effectively, and show basically how we can make this a little bit more dynamic in a sense, and just think about using the space, traversing from like midground to foreground to background, etc. And how we can kind of start to break up these diagonals a little bit. So I will turn this around.
So easy. So easy.
Look at that. So easy. And we'll draw this again.
Can I just say that Copper Bob and the Arachnid Men sounds like such a good band name.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. For real. I really think it's got legs. I don't know about you, but the marketing opportunities for Copper Bob, Arachnid Men.
Yeah, I'll have to. You know what? I'll have a word with Christina after this, and we'll see what we can do with Copper Bob and the Arachnid Men.
Yeah. He could even have his own standalone.
Yeah. How do you get from being the local scrap dealer to becoming an international superhero?
Yeah. Like the start of Iron Man 1 when he's in the cave and he makes his suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like but it never evolves from that.
It just stays there.
It's just Copper Bob makes it in his scrapyard. He can like barely walk. He can barely walk in it. It's like he's actually stuck in it.
Yeah, yeah, he's like he's managed to like weld himself into it. I don't know if you can even, I don't think you can even weld copper. He's like soldered himself into it.
Yeah, yeah. He got in it on like a really hot day, and it's the solder kind of trapped him in there.
Man, what a tragic backstory.
I know. Copper's Bob.
Copper's Bob.
Copper's Bob. So yeah, I'll take a bit more time to kind of draw this one out. So like, if anyone's got any kind of questions at this point, by all means, fire away.
Yeah. Illustrator Wes, I don't know what you were trying to say, but you put VAVCWF, and I don't know what it means, but I'm here for it, and I totally agree. But you know, if you'd like to elaborate, then I would love to hear it.
Yeah, you don't know what you just agreed to as well.
Yeah, yeah. What have you been up to recently, Alex? How's life been?
Life, yeah, it's been okay actually. I've been looking to get back into like tournament paintball.
Ooh, nice.
And so I'm basically going paintballing like all weekend.
That's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm pretty stoked about it. It's taken like all my mental fortitude to not invest in loads of equipment immediately before even like going back to give it another go.
Yeah.
As someone who loves a hobby with equipment, it is basically taking all of my mental energy right now.
Yeah, I totally feel that.
To not do it.
Yeah. When was the last time you did tournament paintball?
When I was like 19.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I only went along to like practices that the team had. I never actually played in a proper tournament, but it was really fun. Like the practices were really good. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like where they have the inflatable obstacles, and it's like 5v5.
Yeah.
And you have to try and touch the buzzer at the other end.
Yeah.
And it's basically just a little gunfight. Sorry, marker fight. Paintball markers.
Oh, they're not paintball guns.
No, they're not paintball guns. They're paintball markers.
God, how ignorant of me. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's me too. I constantly like, oh yeah, paintball guns.
Yeah.
Like, markers, bro.
I've never been paintballing or airsofting, but I would love to try either of them. There's a place not far from me that does it in like a woodland, and they have all buildings set up there and stuff like that. That's great.
Yeah, it's cool. This place I'm going to on the weekend, they've got like old helicopters and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I had a friend who started off when they were a kid doing paintballing, but they now do airsoft like competitively.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he was saying that he loved it when he was a kid because he would have the paintball like grenades. And he would just throw them through the windows of these buildings, and you just hear someone go, "Oh, come on!" as they get absolutely covered in paint.
Yeah, when I was like signing up for this thing this weekend, because there's like a competition on, and I'm gonna go down and spectate, but then I'm gonna also play a little bit. There was all these extras that you could that you could get on,
Mm.
on top of just your rental stuff.
Yeah.
It was like smoke grenades, paint grenades, like one that's like a BBs, like full of
Oh
plastic
yeah.
BB kind of thing, and I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. It's nuts. I mean, those kind of sports are like, I don't know. I don't want to say that they're pay to win, but it's definitely pay to help. Um,
Yeah,
it's it's insane.
yeah, for real. It's it, having better equipment really does
Hmm.
make the difference, especially when it comes to like accuracy and stuff.
Yeah. They I
But yes, I'm doing that this weekend.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I tried out my friend's airsoft guns or airsoft. I don't know if they're markers in airsoft as well. Who knows? Um, but those things are nuts. Like, there's no recoil on them at all. So
Yeah,
you're there, like this. My friend was like, "Yeah, this is my pistol," and I was like, "Okay, cool. It'll just be like a bam, bam, bam thing." No,
yeah,
no, it's just a full straight machine pistol, basically. Like you hold it
yeah,
down, it's like no recoil whatsoever. I was like, "Oh, cool. That's slightly terrifying."
yeah. Right. It's so weird.
Hmm.
Oh, don't tell me this has crashed again. You kidding me? No, we're
No?
good.
Oh, lucky.
Okay.
Intermittent saves. Intermittent saves.
Yeah, I think actually has it crashed? I can move the canvas, but I can't draw on it. Come on, mate.
That's
Do this to
really
me.
so strange. That's a weird way to crash too.
Ooh, have we accidentally just fixed it? Oh, don't do this to me. Oh, I think.
Ah,
Yes.
you got it. Nice.
Fixed. There we go.
Genius.
Don't worry, folks. No expense has been spared. Okay.
On the fly crash fixing. We love to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Okay. Yeah. So, does it hurt? Did he shoot you with it?
He did not shoot me with it because I did not have any protective. I didn't have any protective equipment on, but it would have done. It's like it smashed a glass bottle, so it would have definitely hurt if it hit me. So
Yeah. No. I've always wondered with the airsoft because obviously I know paintball
mm,
hurts.
yeah, I've heard.
Um. But yeah, with the airsoft, I was like, does it actually hurt? But that kind of answers that.
Yeah, yeah.
I,
I did not really want to be in front of that without any kind of protection on.
yeah, for real. I had a paintball marker at uni, like the one that I was
Mhm.
using for a little while, and I obviously took it to my uni house, and I was like, okay, everyone, I own this, and obviously everyone, you're welcome to play with it, whatever. But just to just so that everyone knows how dangerous it is, everyone has to take one shot on their back, on their bare back,
Oh,
so that you all know, like, not to point at anyone, and the danger of it because it's not a toy.
yeah,
Essentially, you could quite easily blind someone with it.
yeah.
So we went and stood at the end of the garden, like one by one, and got shot in the back with it.
Oh,
Gnarliest bruises.
yeah. I was gonna say that the bruises are gonna be big.
Yeah, super gnarly bruises.
Man,
Um,
no, the only combat sport I take part in is whacking people with hard foam weapons, but that's about it.
Have you received any gnarly bruises from that there?
Yeah. You're supposed to kind of hold back on your blows a little bit, so you're not full whacking someone in this like in the chest with a pole arm. But you know, people still do it. If you're in full plate mail, it doesn't make a difference whatsoever. But I do not wear full plate, so I just end up getting bruised all over. But
You're not a copper Bob after all.
I'm not a copper Bob. That's I'm more of the arachnid. What I can't remember what they're called now. I was like the arachnid. I was like the arachnid kids.
You're much more of the arachnid men.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah. For some reason, I have arachnid kid in my head.
Yeah. Arachnid kid. That's just his kid.
Yeah. Ignacio asks, can you distort the camera lens more in the program, like more millimeters? Oh, do you mean like more like specific?
No, there's not like any. Oh, I need a 35mm lens.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff going on with this. No, it's more like.
I like to zoom in.
Mouse wheel in.
Yeah.
Mouse wheel out.
That would be cool though.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, and you never know. Maybe we can convince the guy that makes the program to add some features if he knows more people are using it. But,
yeah. Or just maybe make your own plugin. You know.
Yeah, if you're that way inclined.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do that. But yeah, for like basically what you're using it for, just like sketching and working out a composition that way. Like it really doesn't need like too much more in terms of that sort of functionality.
Yeah.
To make sense, like if I'm basically using this to figure out my composition, I'm taking it to Photoshop to paint anyway, then don't really need to be that specific about it. It's just nice to have the option to kind of figure this out as I'm going. Like, you know, if I wanted to decide that actually I want the, what's she called? Curtains in the Wind lady to be the one that is like closer to the camera and coming in. Like I can sort of decide to do that once I've sketched it out. And although I need to kind of re-sketch on this to then make it work for this angle, you know, it's easier to understand the space in that way. Or if the dash is remaining that one, you know, or if I'm like, oh, I need a bit more, I want to really push this, you know, like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like maybe this orb is like sucking everything in. It's a time rift.
Yeah.
You know? There's just some nice options that you don't have just sketching on a blank canvas. In here, so let's see.
I was just looking on the website actually, and I saw this also has like animation stuff built into it as well. So if you really wanted to, you could do animations in here, which is fun.
Yeah, there's that, and I think there also is some kind of like 3D functionality which I've not even looked into. As in like you can bring in models and stuff, but that stuff way too advanced.
Yeah.
For us 2D bods.
2D Bob. It's called
2D Bobs.
Copper
Yeah,
Bob's
exactly.
cousin.
2D Bob. He's just a piece of sheet metal.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminded me of when I was a kid. There was a book called oh, was it? It was called Flat Stanley. That was it. And the
Oh
whole
yeah.
like the premise of the book was that this kid got flattened by like I don't remember was it his bed? I feel like his bed fell on him or something. And the whole premise of the book was that he is now flat. He is now a 2D person.
Stanley.
Stanley, come on, man.
Get grip, bruh.
Just do what they do in cartoons. Just blow yourself back up to your thumb.
Yeah, just
Man, the Revengers and the unlimited water balloon.
yeah. Don't pop it.
Don't pop it. It's unlimited water in that bad boy.
Yeah. To get it this size as well, the world is now missing all of its water.
There's
And
no more water. It's all
he had it
gone.
on the tap, just
Yeah.
like you're like, Shmanos, no. He's like, I'll do it.
Shmanos, no, think of your water bill.
Yeah. He's like, I don't care.
Oh my god.
I don't care. It's not my house.
No.
He's in a hotel. It's the only.
It's in a travel lodge.
He's found a loophole for infinite water.
Man, I remember when I was at university, like I didn't have to pay for the bills in my student
Oh
accommodation.
yeah, he said.
Yeah, so it literally was just like, oh man, our tap is dripping. That sucks. Never mind.
No worries.
I'm not paying for it.
Yeah.
Which, I was gonna say I can imagine the landlord loved, but to be fair, he didn't really do much anyway. So
Yeah, exactly. You could be the origin story for Shmanov.
yeah. Oh yeah. Try wasting water now. I have it all.
Yeah. No one can waste any more water.
Yeah.
I have every single bit.
Oh my god. This is developing. This universe is so deep.
Yeah, I wonder where all our ideas will come from.
I don't know. The creativity that is just inherently in an artistic mind.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Who else can think of the arachnid men?
Swinging in from nowhere. Right. Yeah. Realized how terrible my sketching is on the spot. Drawing in front of people and they're like, oh, I didn't know Alex chooses to draw with his left hand even though he's right-handed.
No, it's you're ambidextrous. It's fine.
Yeah, but I'm trying to get my point across rather than
Yeah.
making the best drawing ever.
Yeah.
This guy's just full on.
He's trailing behind. He's just starfishing it.
Yeah,
He's not one of the arachnid men. He's just someone who saw them swinging around and thought, I could do that. He couldn't.
yeah. It's fucking flying squirrel boy.
it's the arachnid men featuring the flying squirrel. His massive tail. Beautiful.
And he's back there, and these guys are just like, oh god, he's following us again.
Every time. He's not even part of the Revengers.
He's not one of us. I feel like this guy's a little bit bigger than he should be. That's one thing they don't have in the air is that I can't like lasso tool that guy and make him smaller.
Oh yeah, that's annoying.
So
Bye.
yeah. See you.
I was trying to think of a punny name, and I couldn't think of one. Of like a play on Peter Parker, and I couldn't think of one. David
You mean
Barker.
Bertie Barker?
Bertie Barker, that's the one.
Okay. So yeah, I think as I'm starting to maybe illustrate a little bit here is when I place the camera in the scene in this way, where the viewer is actually in the scene and things are happening past us, and we start to build up some bridges, as I like to call them, into the scene. We start to make the same composition basically a bit more dynamic. Like we are a foreground plane, essentially, as the viewer, like here, and the dash is like coming through this plane and starting to make a bridge, into the midground. And Curtains in the Wind Lady is coming from, like basically really into the foreground, and her bridge goes much further into the midground than the dashes does.
Yeah.
Which then brings us to where Shmanos is, and we start to bring in these bridges that bring us from like the midground, the background into the midground, etc. And we could do even more here, like compositionally, to start to do this as well. Like if I sort of roughed in some clouds that were going to be above here, and we zoom back into our scene, like we could really start to kind of introduce a frame within a frame around our character, and we could bring in old Copper Bob back here, for example. But essentially what we're doing is we're bringing the viewer into the frame, and we're traversing those three spaces that we set. And I think doing that is what makes is one way to make these sort of dynamic action scenes much more dynamic overall. And even though we still have things that enter the scene from different angles, we're also playing up the sort of visual flow of that as well. So before, it's like everything was quite literally aligned on the 45 degree.
Yeah.
Well, now we're sort of twisting that to introduce a different entry point, but there's an implied flow between like this, the dash's entry, like this, and Curtains in the Wind Ladies entrance like this, which forms, just a nice S-curve across the image. And even though those things aren't joined, it starts to use the space more effectively. And like we see, the top planes of this, and then it curls around and we see the underside. And here we're seeing very much the underside. Overall, it's just, if we thought of everything as just like a pipe coming into this, then, we just have dynamic pipes going on, and we're leading the eye with the lines to bring us into this overall, and that's kind of how I like to think about dynamic compositions. So obviously this is kind of one way that I could show this to you by kind of roughly sketching out the same thing a couple of times and doing this, but I did want to go to like Photoshop and show you on an actual painting that's already done some more things about dynamic compositions. So we'll leave Pano Painter here for now. As you can see, really cool tool. Check it out if you want to.
Yeah.
We'll go across to that seamless transition.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Schmodoshop. Okay. So I'm gonna show you like two images. They are they are basically showing the same thing, but one of the compositions is not as dynamic as the other one, and I'm just going to talk about some of the reasons why that is, and hopefully that also, in a similar way to what we just looked at, help illustrate like what makes composition dynamic as opposed to being undynamic.
Cool.
So there's this image here. There's a guy. He is having a reflective moment looking in the mirror. He seems to be wearing a mask. And, the reflection in the mirror is not matching the action of the guy himself. So narratively, there's something set up here where we're kind of invited to see like a bit of an intimate moment, if you like, between this character and his reflection. And maybe it's telling us something about this character, that there is a duality to his mind, or there's kind of some mystery about his kind of psyche in that sense. And in this image, it uses quite a lot of techniques that would be kind of dynamic within an image. One of them being using a frame within a frame. So, the picture itself, the edges of the picture frame the image, and this happens with every image that we ever look at. We're being presented with a frame. And when we compositionally break that up by introducing a frame inside of an image, we are focusing the viewer's attention to another portion of the image. And we can use this in a way to kind of tell narrative or tell a story, or like bring the viewer's attention to something. And it doesn't have to be as set up as it is here. Like I was mentioning back on this one, if we bring kind of some clouds in behind Shmanos here, we introduce a frame within a frame. Like we single out an area that we want you to look at in somewhat of a specified way to create another place for the viewer to look into. And this is what's happening in this image, right? We've got a frame within a frame. It focuses our attention to something that is more narratively important, because, like, let's face it, all of this stuff out here, not important to the story. But we do have all of this space within the frame to fill up. So how do we direct our viewers' attention to something we want them to look at? We can use a frame within a frame. And in this case, it is a literal frame within the image. He's looking into this mirror. And narratively, this sets something up. Here we are seeing that the reflection is different to what the guy is doing. So this tells us that there's some kind of supernatural element to this. Maybe he has a split personality, or he has like a Jekyll and a Hyde kind of thing.
Yeah.
The mask is like, he's one person, and then when he takes it off, he's a different person. It sets up this kind of duality in here, which is narratively quite cool within this, and this frame helps us see that. Another thing that's being used here is like the value of this kind of white in the reflection to pick out this guy's silhouette in here. It's another device, and also if you like, another frame. Like we have this division to tell us to look in here, and then we are framing the values of this guy's head with a lighter value to give us contrast. So it's kind of a secondary frame, if you like, within here. It's something else to focus the viewer's attention. So this image, has a lot going for it in that sense. It's quite sort of somber in a way. Yeah. Like it's yeah. But the thing is, there's some things about this that are maybe a little bit not so dynamic. Like everything is very like vertically aligned. There are these verticals in the image that come through that make this very sort of grounded. The color palette is very muted. It doesn't pop in any way. The only way that it pops is through the value. There's no use of like color to help this happen in here. And in some way as well, us as the viewer are not invited to participate in this image, other than being in a very sort of voyeuristic manner. Like we are very much removed from it, which can be used, well. And I think it does set up a kind of very somber and static mood within this composition. But what I'd like to show you now is like a second image. There's essentially the same setup, but uses kind of more markers for a dynamic illustration. And I think you guys will see the difference between these. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about them and break that painting down in comparison to this one. Mm-hmm. So this next one, here he is.
That's amazing. That's really good.
As you can see, the frame within the frame to focus the viewer's attention. Okay. So, this is the painting.
Yeah, there we go. That was
okay.
That was good. I like that.
That was a better reveal. This was completely by accident as well. I didn't know that this was even on. I thought I was going back to a blank layer.
It was the like second of silence that really got it. That really got me. It was like a second of silence. I was like, "That's amazing. That's really good, actually."
That's fantastic.
It's minimalist. It's fun. It's beautiful in its own way.
Yeah, it's digital art.
Yeah,
right there. Pinnacle. Years of training.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm already warm. Don't make me laugh too much.
I'm way too warm.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one, another picture of someone looking in the mirror. But there are lots of the same things at play here, but they're being used differently to make this a much more dynamic illustration overall. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to sort of talk about those one by one. So this character, if you don't know, is from League of Legends, and just a small bit of backstory / context to his character will also help us understand why this is maybe a better storytelling. But essentially this character, he is a murderer, and he is kind of he believes that like murder is art. That the art of setting up and eventually murdering someone is akin to writing a symphony or painting an oil painting. There is a craft to it overall, and because he's very good at his craft, he's very vain. He sees himself as a virtuoso, kind of a mastermind of this. And there are sort of similar things that could be drawn from this image as well, even though this image doesn't have that same context. We can sort of draw something about this, like there is maybe a vanity to it because he's looking in the mirror. There is a kind of mind play thing going on, so that very similar in that aspect. But yeah, just for this one, that is kind of important in here. So yeah, first thing first, like we have this whole frame within a frame thing going on in here, except that the way they use the frame here, which is different from this one, is that this frame exists like on a plane in the midground, on its own, and apart from the shape of it, kind of disclosing a window for us to look into, the shape of it itself isn't that inspiring in the composition. Whereas the frame in this one creates a very dynamic shape. Bloody scribble. Let me get rid of that. My masterpiece.
No.
It's gone. Yeah. So the frame in this image, it goes from thick to thin. It creates like a parabolic curve throughout the image, and it serves to tell us a bit more about the space within the image. Like the wall on the left side is closer to us than the wall on the right side, and we are now in the scene very close to the mirror above this guy, like looking into the reflection at him. So automatically we've been drawn into the image, and this shape, this frame, even in and of itself, is a dynamic way of dividing up this space. We have this large shape that goes from thick to thin. It cuts a square border, with curves. It divides it up into several spaces. There's, in an abstract sense, like it is one way of dividing up the space that is a lot more dynamic than the verticals that are placed in here, and it produces a different mood, but it is, in effect, a lot more dynamic than the previous one. So the frame within a frame like works very well here to focus our attention. We also have this, again, like we have in the other one, this secondary frame within the frame, where we have the light that is coming through this kind of window behind Jin, the character here, that frames his head in the same way that this is being framed. Except that for me in here, there is a bit more of a narrative element to this, where it almost mimics like a halo behind his head. And if we think about this guy being particularly vain and like very into his craft of murder, that he thinks he's a genius, and maybe in some sense thinks he's a kind of a god of his craft, that to have this kind of halo framing his head in this way, it inspires religious iconography in our minds, and so we kind of portray that onto the character. We're used to seeing an image, of said man chilling on his cross-shaped board, with the halo. Like we know what this imagery is, and when we see something that references it, we can't help but impart, a similar meaning or understanding to what's being presented to us. And again, this is happening, like we have this frame. Let's draw different there. We have this frame, and then within that frame, we have this frame. And then on top of that, we have like the placement of his head. And we're setting up these spaces in this way. And it's very dynamic, but it produces depth. Like we have the circle, and then inside it, we have another circle, smaller, like set back into the image. And if I was to do another one, like, all the way here, even bigger, and
drag the canvas off,
drag the window off, like it sets up depth even in an abstract sense. So it's like it draws us into an image, which is quite clever, really, because we're looking at essentially a flat wall at an angle. The depth in this image is happening behind us. So this is a very interesting and sort of dynamic way to present this, but also dynamically presents the narrative as well, with this idea that we should maybe think that this guy thinks very highly of himself. Not only is he looking in the mirror, but the way that we're seeing him is kind of like a sort of holiness, a god, and maybe he views himself that way. So there's that narrative going on. What's also happening in here is that there's a lot of diagonals within this composition that cut this frame up, and there are quite a lot more sharper shapes in here than you might originally think, but it's a nice contrast to, again, like the roundness of the frames, right? So we have a lot of these round shapes like being echoed in this composition, and it sets up a rhythm. And what is also great in a dynamic composition is to set up rhythms, and then where you have your focal points is to break those rhythms so that you introduce contrast. And so what we start to see here is that this main light shape on him forms like a triangle. The way that this shadow and this crack, visually line up, the way that this shadow edge lines up, this shadow edge lines up. We start to see this triangle in here, and again, it's like in something that's been set up with a lot of curves, even curves that are going in different directions as well. There's all of this curvature, all over the place. There's a lot of this kind of rhythm going on. This shape kind of cuts that rhythm, and it does that right within our focal area. And whether this is like completely deliberate or not, I don't know. This is just the ramblings of a conspiracy theorist about this painting in here. But it is a decision here that I could see being made to set up a contrast within the shapes. Like, it does focus your attention, and it's happening right at the focal area. I refuse to believe that it is not deliberate, as it is something that I would try and do within a piece, to try and set up as many contrasts as I could around my focal area, in the same way that they have very dark values here, very light values here, and very light values here. You're setting up what's called counter change, essentially dark on white on dark on white all the way around. And where you do this, you're focusing attention, because it is a contrast. So yeah, this is a very sort of interesting thing to do, to set that up within the focal area, and it's something you'll see a lot in dynamic compositions, that there will be contrasts, whether that is in shape, design, whether that is in values, whether that is in color, and so on and so forth. These contrasts will always happen around where you're meant to look, to make it more visually interesting. So we sort of look at some of those contrasts on the image in that way. So let's say we have a little checklist of like things that we can contrast. We can contrast like shape. We can contrast color, or more specifically hue, value, and so within these we can kind of look at certain things and where those contrasts happen across the image. So shape, obviously, we have like this very strong like triangle kind of motif that's set up in the middle versus the roundness. That's one that we had in here. Something that we have going on quite a bit in the image, and this it is happening in our focal area, but it's also happening in other places, is that we have a mix of like very kind of thick areas, and these can be of value or of color or even of shape, versus very, very thin and kind of minute areas and lines. So we've got this big sort of thickness of the frame, and like these big sort of thicker, blanker areas like this, contrasted with in places, especially around the face, like more detail, thinner lines, you know, lots of clustered smaller shapes together in an area. And like this is one of the areas that you see this the most in, because it is a focal point. You don't see like loads of it happening out here, for example, or back here, you know, or over here, or over here. But here, you know, all of these shapes, they're very sharp. There's lots of small details and stuff like that, versus like much quieter, larger areas. So those are contrasts there. In terms of hue, like the most saturated areas in this composition are here. Like, let's pull open the color picker. Like, you can see all of these values much more saturated than like these ones, or even these ones.
I feel like I just need to stop for a second. Hello, Alex. How are you doing? Sorry, Alex Alexandrov is in the chat, just saying hi to me in multiple different ways. So,
hello.
Hi, Alex. Before he fills the chat up with different ways to say my name. But I also do have a question in the chat as well, which you might want to answer now, you might want to answer later. But it's can making an idea too complex decrease its dynamicism? Dynamicism.
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on what you mean by complex. Like, you can have a super detailed image that is very dynamic, if that's what you mean. I'm not really sure, because I'm not very sure exactly where you mean more complex. Like, if you just mean more detailed, then it doesn't matter. Like, you know, there's something very dynamic about a Michael Bay Transformers fight scene, and they're like super detailed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're very complex and they're moving. And there's something, you know, very dynamic as well about something quite abstract. It just has a nice, you know, flow and like dynamic shape to it. So yeah, I would be inclined to say that if it's just in terms of detail, then no, potentially not. There's a point at which you could be detailing something and then it wasn't ever dynamic, and you've just covered it with detail. You know what I mean? I feel like if it's inherently dynamic, it's not something that can be necessarily broken by adding more complexity to it, unless you're specifically undoing those things. Because you know that's why, like, the gesture sketch of something and the finished thing, you know, the gesture is very simple and dynamic, and if the finished thing follows that gesture, then the finished result will be as well, given that it has more detail.
Alex in the chat says, as long as there's directional flow, dynamicism will stay. If it's random chaos, then yes, it will.
You can't like add more details to something not dynamic in the hopes that adding those details will make it more dynamic. If there wasn't already that setup there in the first place. You know, for example, this scene basically has all the makings of that other one, of this one. But it's arranged in an undynamic way. So we could paint this up and put crazy amount of details in there, but it's not going to make this composition any more dynamic than it currently is. And you could take details out of this one, and everything would be very basically rendered, or just draw it. It would still be very dynamic overall. Yes.
Sorry about that little tangent, but I think you were talking about hue.
Yes, hues. So yeah, like all these hues out here away from the focal points are all very muted, right?
Hmm.
They stay very they're just like colorful grays basically. Um, they do go a bit into color, but there's really nothing punchy. And the only punchy places where the hues really get saturated are like these oranges and yellows
Hmm.
here, and these pinks of the collar around here, and like even the gold gets a uh, bit more love and attention than it does a bit further out here. So like the hue contrast is here versus the rest of the image. So again, something that leads the eye to the focal point. If you were to just blur this image, gosh, and blur.
Everyone's
Maybe not too
favorite.
much, but yeah, you can see that that contrast of hue still draws the eye, even though it's less obvious what exactly the image is.
Hmm.
It's still something that's set up in there. And then, yeah, the other thing in here is the values, right?
Yeah.
Um, the biggest contrast in value uh, happen here. This is like one of the darkest values in this piece, and it's right next to one of the lightest.
Mm.
Pardon me. And this is happening at the head also. Um, so yeah, those are different contrasts in here. And narratively, obviously, get rid of that pink. There we go. Yeah, narratively, there's a lot of intrigue going on in this composition, which makes it very dynamic as well. So here, obviously, we have a lot of detail and those contrasts that we have set up. But this makes you focus on his face, and
Mm.
generally we do focus on faces and compositions. Um, but what's quite nice, like narratively here, uh, is that there is this like crack, this like fracture that goes through the character's head,
Mm.
which fractures his reflection.
Yeah.
And it's quite telling that it's going through his head, and we're looking at someone who has like a broken mind, you know?
Hmm.
He is a murderer that sees art in his murder. And, that is not the normal way of thinking. And he therefore has a fractured mind,
Hmm.
and we are literally seeing a fractured mind within the picture. Um, and he is within a frame, and he is thinks that murder is art, and
Yeah.
by him being in a frame, we are looking at him in a painting essentially,
Yeah.
and so he views himself as art, and we are viewing himself as that. He has a fractured mind,
Yeah.
um, which is really cool.
I think
Um,
something that I've seen this. I've seen this painting a few times, and the thing I've just noticed from looking at it is that you can actually see the victim on the floor next to him as well. So it's like,
yes,
and I mean, it's very basic, but like, the bullet hole is on the body of the victim, like smashing the mirror,
yes,
which I think
yeah,
is really cool.
yeah, exactly. This is what I was about to say. Like the other area of, let's say, crunchy detail is what I
Mm.
like to call this. The only other area of really crunchy detail in the image is here,
Yeah.
where we have all these cracks in the mirror, and we have a lot of very dark values here, and lots of smaller shapes split up by those, and some saturation.
Hmm.
So the viewer, the artist is telling us like, hey, this bit is also important because I've set up similar contrasts here
Hmm.
for you to look at. And yeah, like you said, it is that we are seeing the victim on the floor, laying here. But more telling, he has shot the victim, and we're not showing them laying on the floor in the reflection with a bullet hole in them. The reflection of them has been hit by the stray bullet,
Hmm.
but it's telling us the same story as if we were looking at the reflection of this guy laying there with a bullet hole
Yeah.
in him. But it sort of removes us from it. and
Mm.
presents it in a much more like theatrical way, uh, almost, which again sort of ties into his whole shtick of being this very sort of theatrical uh, composer of murders in a way. And yeah, with that context, it sets up a much more dynamic illustration. And even though it is very dynamic, it's not that we've completely got rid of the introspective moment of
Yeah.
someone looking in the mirror. Like that, this is an introspective moment. It's something that we are viewing as an outsider
Mm.
and is maybe a private moment. This is also that private moment. And, with us being placed above the mirror and close to the wall, we are in the image, but we're almost like a disembodied,
Yeah.
spirit or something that is watching this. So we're seeing a very quiet, kind of personal moment where he's looking in the mirror, admiring his work, and we're getting to sort of see that reflection. So
Mm.
it's a very dynamic composition, but it's not destroying the story for doing that.
Yeah.
Um, and I think therefore it's a really good illustration of how to use a dynamic composition to make an illustration very engaging,
Mm.
uh, but not necessarily destroying the moment uh, that's meant to be presented, because it is meant to be a very kind of introspective and quiet moment going on in here. And it is one of my favorite splash arts from League
Mm.
for this reason. I think he's one of like the best characters from the game in terms of how how well everything is thought out
Yeah.
about his story and everything like that. It's just very engaging thing overall.
Mm.
But yeah, I always come back to this painting, and yeah, I mean maybe even some people have heard me rant about this painting before. Because anytime someone's like, what, help me with composition, I'm like, well,
Well,
here we go. Here you go.
yeah.
And I actually have never found out who the artist was for this, because most times people will, post the artworks they've done for Riot on ArtStation or somewhere, and you know who the artist is. But for the life of me, whenever I've looked, I can't find this image on ArtStation. I can't find anywhere where someone's like posted it and been like, "Hey, this is the splash that I did."
Hmm.
So if anyone does know which of the artists did this, I would really like to know, just so that I don't have to lay awake at night anymore.
I'm like,
Um,
I'm like currently Googling it now. I'm like trying to find it, but something
yeah,
tells me if you can't, then I'm gonna struggle. But,
yeah. You
you
know
know
that you
that you
can
can
Google by
Google it.
image.
What do you think I'm
Okay,
doing, Alex?
maybe you can have a crash course on how to use the Google.
I'm
Um,
I'm looking through it right now to see if I can find it, but alas, I cannot. Uh, but yeah, you would think that they would put some form of credit on the page, considering
yeah,
it's
yeah,
well,
um, yeah. It's not, in Legends of Runeterra, like they put the artist names
hmm,
in the thing when you go and view the artworks, you can see the artist names.
yeah,
But on the League client, it's not set up that way.
yeah. Hmm. No, I can see some concept art for it, but that's about it. Well,
Yeah.
there,
Well, if
there's
anyone knows,
there's your homework. Find out,
yes,
find out who made this.
yeah. If anyone knows, you can put it in a letter and post it to me. Third class mail.
Third class mail, damn.
Yeah, I don't want to put anyone out.
Yeah, well, like the £1, like £2 stamp or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, on some Ashton says on some website I just found it says the artist is Evan Somnicidal Monteiro. Might not be
Oh,
true though. Mm.
okay. Yeah, I've not heard of them. Um, I'll look it up and see if that's true.
Well, they are currently a splash artist at Riot, so
Oh, cool. All right.
nice.
Yeah, I'll have a look. I'll have to have a look at their other work and see. Be able to tell
Yeah,
almost immediately if it's them.
yeah. Oh, hang on. Yeah, it is them. It's on the wiki.
Look at that. Years of longing.
Yeah. Oh, they did the Kindred one as well. Oh, I love the Kindred splash art. It's so
Yeah, the
nice.
Kindred one's really cool. Hang on, get that up because that's also a very good composition.
Hmm.
Uh,
Man, they did. Oh,
maybe.
yeah, they did a lot of good ones.
Oh, you can't. Yeah, this one, the Kindred one. Very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, really very cool. Um, Alrighty, well,
Cool.
that was pretty much everything I had prepared for today
Yeah.
uh, on the stream.
No, that's been amazing. Thank you so much.
No problem. I hope that was informative uh, and made sense.
Oh, thank you, FFS Angel, for the posture check. Just as we're about to come to an end, but you know what? Sure. I'm seeing pretty good already, actually. But uh,
Yeah, I did. I discovered today for the first time that you can actually lock the back of this.
oh, have you just been like
I was
falling
today is
backwards?
ending up like this at the end of the day.
I've had it with this chair before. My chair like rocks backwards. So I've had it before where I've realized it's unlocked and I've just leant back and it's gone, oh no.
Oh gosh.
But yeah. So let me see what we've got coming up next week. That's the wrong year. I'm looking in the calendar for 2023. I was in December and I was like, I didn't plan that far ahead yet. So next Wednesday we have anthropomorphic creature designs with Alex Pachenko, and then next Thursday we are back with Antoine to do another one of our Pomodoro style streams. But we'll probably be rendering some of the characters we came up with. When was that? Last week? The week before? Last week. Yeah, we'll probably carry on rendering some of those characters, I think. What is anthropomorphic? It's like creatures that are humanoid. It's like a humanoid
Yeah.
animal sort of thing.
Did you ever read Animorphs books?
Animals? I did not. I did not read Animals. I read Flanimals as a kid. Did you ever see Flanimals? Oh, dude, look up Flanimals when you get the chance. I think it was made by Ricky Gervais back like.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it was nuts.
This is Animorphs.
Oh man, look at that.
These books, it's like these kids can turn into animals, and these are the covers for the books.
Why? Of all the design, that's so like 80s 90s, you know. It's like
Yeah.
we found out we can do this, so we're gonna, but we really shouldn't.
How good do you think this story is, where this poor child can turn into a cockroach?
Man, what is the one next to the cockroach one?
This one.
What? I'm looking at the one next to the cockroach one.
Anteater.
Oh my god, that anteater is nuts. No. That one. Yeah, that one. What is going on there?
What? That doesn't even start as a child. That's like some kind of centaur,
it's like
slug, bat thing.
Yeah, it's like a centaur slug thing, and what? No way.
Oh
The thing
Brilliant.
is like I can't tell if these are all real or some of them are like spoofs. But
Um, I most of these are from when I was a kid. That this is these are most of these are real.
imagine having a
Yeah.
friend who can turn into like you have a friend who can turn into like an eagle. You have another one that can turn into, I don't know, an anteater. It's like, no, I can turn into a Labrador and a
Yeah,
starfish.
yeah. I like this tagline. The newest Animorph has a secret, and it's not good. It's like,
He turns into a dog.
and the secret is that he's. It's not that he turns into a Labrador. There's something else.
Oh, there's something else. Oh man, I don't know if I want to read that book.
Yeah. He's like he's got a different secret.
He didn't do his homework.
Yeah.
Oh
So there
my
you go.
god.
Anyway, sorry, Animorphs. So
Now, oh
those
man.
what
Now I want to
anthropomorphic
see.
creature design.
Now I want to do a
Yeah,
stream where people create their own animorphs.
yeah.
The secret is
And
the
you're only
dog
allowed
turns
to
into a child.
yeah, you're only allowed to use like the opacity on layers in Photoshop and 2 photos.
Just
Yeah.
wrestling them together. It's amazing. So yeah, come along for that if you want to see some
Yeah,
animorphs.
I am tuning into that.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you again, Alex. This has been it's been really cool. I mean, even just seeing this program was cool enough, but there was so much interesting information as well in the second half of the stream as well. So
No
thank you.
problem. It's
Thank you
lovely to
everybody.
be here.
Thank you everybody who watched as well. It's always a pleasure. So yeah, check in next week. But until then, have a wonderful weekend. If you're anything like me, you'll be spending it not trying to die in the heat. But thank you so much, guys. I'll see you later. Bye bye.
Nice one. Bye.